Okay. Hey everyone, welcome back to Today in Tech. Once again, without a proper host, I'm Michael Simon from Macworld, joined by Ken Mingus from Computer World. And it's the Thursday before a holiday weekend, and we're just going to kind of meander a little bit, if you don't mind. We got, a bunch of small little things to talk about, and we'll see where we end up.
We meander well, and
Yeah,
I listen. I would say, it's not so small. You can talk about the M2 MacBook Pro that's out, the rumors of the MacBook Air M2, which you guys have written about. You can talk about. There's lots to talk about.
sure, always. We always
Let's
have things to
meander.
talk about. So
Let's
yeah,
meander.
let's start there. Let's start with the 13-inch MacBook Pro. First reviews are up. We tested it at Macworld, and it was, as expected. The chip,
Yeah.
about 20% performance gains, roughly about 35% graphics GPU gains, which is because there's an extra couple of cores there. It makes sense. It lines up. Why Apple is selling this laptop is still we
That
can't
was
answer that question.
that's literally you stole the question out of my
Yeah.
mouth because it's like I was looking at the stories that you guys have had on this. It's a very nice 13-inch
Sure.
MacBook
There's
Pro.
nothing wrong with it.
Nothing wrong with it.
Nothing wrong with it.
But when you compare it to the upcoming MacBook Air, I mean, which is redesigned, new colors,
Yeah.
I mean, I
I
know it's not
mean,
quite as powerful,
even the old, so even if you take that out of the equation for now,
yeah.
let's compare the old M1 Pro to the M1
Is
Air.
that still for sale, the M1?
The Air is, not the Pro.
Okay.
So you're talking about like, would you spring for a extra $300 for the Pro? Like, I would recommend an M1 Air at this point.
Yeah.
Like the gains that you're seeing in the M2 are fine for what people are going to use that machine for. I don't care that it has Pro in it. It is not a Pro machine, not.
Yeah.
I don't care what Apple says. I don't care why it insists on telling us it has active cooling and it's a Pro machine. It's not. It's not a Pro machine. I don't care that it has a fan.
It's got a
It's
touch bar too, right?
it has a touch bar, which is no longer a Pro feature except
Which I
on
would
Mac.
not call a pro feature at
Yeah,
all.
yeah. I mean that's the only reason to buy it in my mind, and I wouldn't recommend anyone buy it for that reason. But there's nothing about it as a Pro. In fact, people did testing on the 256 gigabyte model. We didn't get that one. We got the step up model,
Okay.
and they found that SSD speeds, which are pretty important, were like half of the M1. And someone took it apart, and the reason why is because they're using a single 256 gig chip, a 256 gigabyte SSD chip
Yeah.
for the storage. Where on the old model they used two 128 gigabyte models, and everything wrote significantly faster. If you get the higher end models, that's not the case. So now you're buying a $1,300 laptop that's kind of hampered for one. So you got to go to the 14. If you go to the $1,400 one, $1,500 one, 1499,
Yeah.
it is patently identical to the Air. Same chip, get the 10 core, 10 core GPU in the Air and the Pro.
Yeah.
Same size screen. In fact, the Air is a little bit bigger and has a better screen. Same hard drive. So what are we doing here?
Yeah.
I just don't understand its place in in the lineup. Now, in a vacuum, as you just said, it's a good laptop. There's nothing wrong with the MD. It's good. It's nice. Screen's fine. Camera's kind of sucky, but whatever. The chip is good. It's a very good chip. I'm not blasting the like a 20% improvement over the N1. That's good. That's a good generational increase. I got no problem with that. I just don't know why Apple's still selling it.
Well, explain this to me, because
Sure.
I had seen the same thing about the SSD speeds, and because that really does play it's a pretty important factor in terms of the overall feel
Yeah,
of a laptop.
absolutely.
So if you've got a 20% increase on the chip side, but you're looking at slower speeds on the SSD side, I wonder if in day-to-day use anybody who's buying an M2 MacBook Pro would notice any difference at all
I
between
mean,
that.
honestly, even if the hard drive was the same, you wouldn't really notice that.
Right. Okay.
You have to be doing, sustained work
Yeah.
to really see like Photoshop rendering for minutes, several minutes. If you're just browsing Safari and, doing the things that, Zoom calls and, the normal laptop things,
Yeah.
M1 versus M2, I wouldn't recommend anyone upgrade for the chip.
Right.
Now, if you want the new MacBook Air design, that's another story.
Yeah.
But as far as the chip go, I mean, that's kind of how it is. Like generation to generation, we can go to Intel, we can go to AMD, whoever it is that you're looking at. You buy your laptop and you're probably going to keep it for 4 to 5 years unless there's a major feature change or a major design change. But speed, performance, you're going to get 3 to 5 years out of it and be happy with it.
Mhm.
With Apple, maybe a little bit longer, maybe 5 to 7, because the M1 was a nice increase over the prior year.
All right, that sort of, that was beyond just a traditional one step
Right.
up. That was a
Right.
whole break
Yeah.
and then
Yeah.
starting fresh. Is the camera in the M2 any better than the camera in the M1? And again, with the MacBook Pro here.
You talk about no, it's the same.
Same camera.
Everything is the same. They
Yeah.
didn't change anything except for the chip.
Okay.
In
Does
fact, someone tried on YouTube. They literally took the logic board from the 13-inch MacBook Pro M1 and put it in the 13-inch. I'm sorry. They took the M2 out of the 13-inch MacBook Pro and put it in the M1, and it fit because it's the same size, but it didn't work.
Okay. What I was going to ask is the the MacBook Air, the M2, which we now think is coming in a couple of weeks. Does that have an upgraded camera?
Yeah. It has upgraded everything.
That's what I thought,
The
because
speakers, the microphones, the screen, the chip, the camera, the design, the color, the port, the charging, everything is better on the MacBook Air. Everything.
I think we now know why they rolled out the MacBook Pro quickly. And
Sure,
got it out
but
there.
it's almost like bait and switch in some weird way. Like it's like talk about buyer's remorse. Like if you're an unsuspecting consumer, and not everyone does the research that we do, not everyone reads the sites that we write, stories that we write to help people make these decisions. So if you go into a Apple store and you really need a laptop today,
Yeah.
there's no mention that, oh, by the way, there's an M2 MacBook Air coming out sometime in July. So
Yeah.
you go, oh, this is the new one. I'll buy this.
Yeah.
And then 2 weeks from now, you're like, well, wait a minute, what the hell? Like I got this, again, a very good laptop, but not as good as it could
But
be.
when
And
you-
wait, it's cheaper. The Air is cheaper.
When you
So-
consider, I mean, the point you make is, again, it's fine as it is, but when you consider it in the overall Apple ecosystem of
It
laptops,
shouldn't exist.
it falls short.
It
It
shouldn't
does.
exist.
In 2 weeks or
It's like
whenever-
the Apple TV HD. That shouldn't exist.
Yeah.
Because people are like, well, I don't have a 4K TV. I'll just buy this one. But you're wasting your money.
Yeah.
Because for $20 more, you can get the 4K, and maybe you don't need it now, but you will next year. Maybe you don't care about the MacBook Air design and MagSafe, but you will next year. Like you don't like this 13-inch Pro. Presumably, you're going to keep for 3 to 5 years. In 2027, man, it's going to be an old laptop.
When did when did this design for the 13-inch MacBook Pro start? Did it start with the M1, or is it pretty
No.
much? It started in like 18
Yeah.
or 19, right?
The Air started in 18. The Pro, it might be 2016, to be honest. Oh
Really?
yeah, the Touch Bar, it was 2016. Yeah, it
Okay.
absolutely was. Yeah,
So
it
basically,
hasn't changed since then.
you could buy a brand new M2 MacBook Pro 13-inch model right now, keep it for 5 years, and in 5 years you'd be using a laptop with an 11-year-old design from Apple.
Basically,
I mean, and Apple is known for the design, So you really, again, great laptop. I wouldn't recommend anybody buy one of these things.
and
at this point.
this conversation wouldn't be an issue if they just retired it like they were supposed to.
Yeah.
Like there's just no reason for it to
Maybe they just had a
be
bunch
in
of
the lineup.
They wanted to get rid of them.
Maybe then discount the M1 and sell it that way.
Yeah.
If they kept it around, let's say they kept it around and said, okay, this is $9.99, we're getting rid of the Air. I'm okay with that.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. But it's the same price as it was, and literally nothing about it is new,
All right.
except for the chip.
All right. Buyer beware on the
Kinda, yeah.
Mac-
Kinda. Like I said, you're not going to be unhappy with it.
until you
It's a good
find
laptop.
until you find out that a cheaper, better laptop
Yes.
from Apple is out in 2 weeks
Exactly.
with a new design language that's going to be fairly current for the next 5 years.
Yeah,
And
and it's
you're running
it's
around with
better in every
2016 called and
conceivable
wants
way.
his laptop design back. We should talk about the Air because there are rumors now, actually rumors about when it's coming out. So what are you guys hearing over at Macworld?
Yeah, Mac Rumors had a retail source that said the 15th of July, which makes sense.
Okay.
I mean,
well, Apple had said it was coming in.
You got a 25% shot of getting this one right.
well,
there's
50%.
4
If it
Fridays
comes
in July.
in the first half of the month,
it's not coming out. So tomorrow is July 1st. It's not obviously not coming out July 1st. It's not coming out next week either because we do the pre-order thing. So really, you got 3. You got 3 shots at this. You got a 33% chance of being right.
Yeah.
The 15th sounds right to me. The 22nd sounds like it could be right too. So it's one of those two.
Yeah.
If it is the 15th, then pre-orders start next week. Next Friday.
Do we have any sense of, I noticed with the MacBook Pro, I was surprised that it did not sell out very quickly unless you were going for some, upgraded.
Yeah. I mean, I'm not surprised because I don't know how many people bought it.
Well, okay. So, but I mean, given
this is going to sell out. This will sell out.
That's what I was going to ask. Do we think that the MacBook Air is just going to be,
This is the first. Well, maybe not. Okay, the 14-inch and the 16-inch Pro, that was a new design, but those are super high end. They start at $2,000 and up. That's not an impulse buy.
Right.
This is the first consumer end new laptop from Apple in,
5 years,
maybe. I mean, they redesigned the Air in 2018.
Mm-hmm.
But it was kind of like a variation on a theme, so to speak. It kept the similar wedge design.
Yeah.
It added that Retina display, but it was similar. It added a new color, gold, at the time. So it was similar. The MacBook in 2015. That's the one I'm thinking of as the first real here's something different. They had one USB-C port, a Retina display, which was uncommon at the time. So I'm going to say 7 years, the first real deal, brand new, completely overhauled design for a consumer laptop in a while. So I think there's going to be some serious demand, both from people who have the M1 and MacBook Air and people who have Intel ones. The price is right. $1199 is great. I would recommend getting that $1,500 one because you're going to get, so just like last time, the $1199 one, which is $200 more than the M1. M1 was $999. The $1199 model has a sort of cut rate M2 chip. So instead of 10-core GPU, you get an 8-core GPU before you got a 7-core GPU.
Right.
It's not going to really matter. I have the 14-inch M1 Pro with the 8-core CPU, 14-core GPU, I believe. Right?
That sounds right. Yeah.
It's perfectly good. Perfectly great, even. I wouldn't know for my use. So, you'll be that's fine. If you can swing it, I would recommend jumping to $1,500. If you can swing it more, I would recommend getting at least 16 gigs of RAM as well. Maybe even 24. If depending on what you can afford.
If you're going to future-proof it, I agree. I mean, I still can't believe that Apple is starting with 8 gigs of RAM on these things.
I'm not surprised at that.
It isn't. I just think that's just to get you in the door.
What do PC
assumption that you're going to add RAM because anybody that's going to keep a laptop 3 to 5 years and is buying an 8 gig RAM laptop in 2022, I just have to believe in a few years that's going to start to show. Things are going to slow down.
So I'm looking at Dell's website. They have XPS 15. Oh, that starts way higher. Hold on, let me find one that starts.
Sort of an entry level model.
Yeah. So okay, here's a $1299 XPS.
Okay.
8 gigs of memory.
Okay.
It's not uncommon.
Yeah.
To start at.
I'd rather be running
8 gigs is still a good amount.
Yeah.
In a couple of years, because you can't change. There's no way. You haven't been able to change it for a while, but there were people who were able to.
Yeah.
Now forget it. It's hardwired into the chip.
Connected
it's
into
impossible.
The whole thing.
Impossible. Yeah. So I would recommend, even if you get the lower end chip, upgrade that RAM to 16 at least.
Yeah.
And it goes up to 24 gigs as well, which is a new that's a new level.
I honestly think 16 would probably hold most users
Yeah,
for these because these are not workhorse machines. And I think 16 is a sweet spot for the next, say, 3 to 5 years. I don't think 8 is. And again, with RAM, more is always better. If like you said, if you can afford it, it's 20 to go to 24 gigs.
yeah,
Do it. What
sure.
what is what would be the most expensive MacBook Air with the M2 chip? 1799.
Let's see.
I'm just
If
curious to
you,
see.
I mean, do we care about the 2 terabytes of, oh, well, not two,
No,
one
no.
terabyte of
I would
storage?
say I would say 512 maybe.
All right,
I
let's
think that's
see.
going to be plenty for most
So
people.
the base
Little,
model.
little price comparison here
Yeah,
for viewers.
so 1199, like I said, 8 core CPU, 8 core GPU,
Yeah.
256. Now we don't know if that's the same 256 as the 13-inch Pro, which is slower. We don't know
Yeah.
yet. So
Yeah.
that could be a reason to
That
not
would
get
be a
that
fact.
model.
Yeah.
Sure. So if you step up to 1500, so that's an extra $300, right?
Yep.
12, 30, 40. Yeah. That's a 10 core GPU
Yep.
and 512 gigabytes of storage. Everything else is, oh, you get a better power adapter too. So with the $1,500 model, you get that new dual port 35-watt
Yep.
power adapter. With the lower end one, you get the old 30-watt adapter. So if that matters to you, that's a couple bucks too. So
So you're
that
getting
is
you're getting two extra cores. You're getting the same amount of RAM, but you're getting twice the storage
right.
and the upgraded charger.
Charger. Yeah. So
Okay.
those three things for $300.
Yeah. All right. And you go up to
Now,
10
if you
now.
go up to 16 gigs of memory, that's another $200. 24 gigs is 400, so another $200 on top of that.
Okay.
So it's basically $200 for 8 gigs of memory
Yep.
each step. And if you go up to a terabyte of storage, that's another $200. I don't think that's necessary, but so if you get all of that, it's $2,100.
Yeah. And then you're definitely into MacBook Pro, the
Well,
big.
that's the thing. So if you do that, you can get the 14-inch Pro for 1999, and maybe you should look at that instead, because that gives you 16 gigs of RAM standard,
Yeah.
and that goes up to 64. That's the M1 Pro chip, which is faster than the M2 chips,
Yeah.
fairly significantly. It's a better chip. So there's,
There's
but that's
I was just going to say the lesson to learn here, if you're buying a MacBook Air, is be a little leery of the the entry level model, at least until we know that the SSD speeds are not
yeah,
off from what they used to be.
and we don't know the chip speeds either.
The chip speeds, right?
Yeah,
Right.
well, I'm assuming
Assuming
if we
20%.
got 35% higher on the M2 with the 10 core, maybe 28%, 25%, 27% higher, which is still good.
Yeah, it's good.
CPU is the same.
Yeah. But the point being that if you stretch too far and try to load this baby up with all the storage you can get, all the RAM you can get, etc., you have already put yourself in terms of price into the MacBook Pro line, and you might want to think about that unless you just really want the smaller screen. The difference between the screen in the MacBook Air in terms of size and the screen in the MacBook Pro 14 is not that dramatic.
0.6 inches.
Yes. Yeah.
So yeah, we're not talking about much. The footprint is very similar.
Yeah.
The design is very similar too, to be honest. It has a notch, the slim bezels. The keyboard well is a little different on the Pro. It's all black. On the Air, it has the aluminum in the middle. But
Unless you want
they're very similar.
that glorious, what is it, midnight black or midnight blue color?
Just called Midnight, but yeah, it's nice.
Yeah, it's like a deepest of blues.
Very, 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 very nice. Yeah,
That would be
that'll
the
be
yeah. If I were buying one, I would get that.
for sure. That's
Yeah.
the popular color.
All
That
right.
will be the popular color.
So I guess we'll know in a couple of weeks when these things are going to hit the market. I presume you guys will get one and test it out for us.
I mean, I hope.
Yeah,
Yeah, I hope so.
that's the plan.
Yeah.
Okay.
So that would probably go up. What is it? A couple of days before. So the pre-orders will be. Let's assume the 15th date.
Yeah.
So the pre-order would be the 8th, and then reviews would go up sometime the next week.
Like the 13th.
At some point, yeah. Whatever Apple's embargo is, it's like Tuesday or Wednesday or Thursday, whatever.
Yeah.
And then they would go on sale that Friday morning, 8 a.m., probably 8 a.m. Eastern.
Okay. One quick question. What is the next M2 model that we think Apple's going to release?
I don't know. MacBook, Mac Mini, maybe. That one is still kind of weird.
Yeah.
because we've had rumors for a while about the Mac Mini, uh, a redesigned Mac Mini, a higher end redesigned Mac Mini, because they still sell that Intel model,
Yeah.
which is just like, what? Why? But that hasn't been updated in a while now. It's still 1099, so it's more expensive than the M1. It's basically slower, but you get a few extra ports, and you can get it in space gray. But we all thought there would be an M1 Pro. Okay, so
A Mac Mini M1 Pro.
let's break down the Apple desktop. So we got the 24-inch iMac has an M1. The Studio, the Mac Studio, which starts at $2,000, has a M1 Max and an M1 Ultra.
Yeah.
There is no desktop Mac that has an M1 Pro, which is the slower version of the
Still
Mac.
fast, but not as fast. Yep.
Yeah. So that's like obviously what Apple's doing, which makes sense. They're going to put an M1 Pro in the Mac Mini for, $1,200 or something, which, good. But where the heck is it?
Yeah.
It's not getting an M1 Pro now because Apple's not going to go backwards and start putting M1 chips in. Like, that's done. Now we're on M2. So it has to get an M2 Pro. Now, if the Mac Mini gets an M2 Pro, what do we do with the MacBook Pros that have an M1 Pro, right? So there's a lot of questions I have about the timing of this.
Yeah, so it does feel like, and I wonder if some of what we're seeing, which leads to this kind of confusion in the Apple Store and the product matrix, is around the supply chain. Some things they can push out, some things they can't. And I would think an M1 Pro Mac Mini, the market for that would be relatively small compared to, say, the MacBook Pro or the MacBook Air. I don't think there's many people who would be buying.
Probably.
Maybe I'm wrong. Tell me I'm wrong.
They're probably. I mean, I don't know for sure because Apple doesn't break down its sales. I would assume, laptops are more in demand than desktops. I assume that. However, if you look at Apple's desktops, I would think an M1 Pro Mac Mini that's as cheap or cheaper than an iMac, a 24-inch iMac, would sell very well amongst the people buying a desktop Mac. Yeah. The Mac Studio is a little bit too expensive for most people. The iMac is still a little polarizing with the colors and the lack of tilt, all that stuff. Not tilt, height adjustment.
And also the screen size. I still would like to see a 27-inch.
Yeah. So if you're looking at a Mac, I got a 30-inch screen at home and I have a keyboard and a mouse. Maybe I'll just buy this Mac Mini for $1,200 or whatever it is, whatever it will be. So I still think that's in the works. I assume that's next. Mark Gurman had a rumor earlier this week that said the timetable for the M2 upgrades is going to be a little bit faster than the comparable M1 upgrades. Okay. So that means that it could be the MacBook Pro laptops could maybe get an update with this year. Like maybe they do bring out the M2 Pro and the M2 Max chips and update those in the fall.
Yeah. So you're telling me that my almost brand new M1 Max MacBook Pro from last fall would be supplanted with a year.
Garbage.
Damn.
I have one too, for what it's worth.
I know you do. And when I say supplanted, I just mean replaced on the store shelf because I don't need to buy another one.
Well, you say that
not
now.
Within a year. No. I'm good.
My guess is
it's going to be the phone.
But my guess is it would be the exactly the same.
Yeah.
With the better chip.
With the chip, yeah. Of course. Okay. Well, while we're continuing our meandering, I wanted to ask you. I'd seen some reports. We've talked about this in the past with Apple trying to develop its own 5G chip, and it sounds like I can't remember now which rumor person where I read this, but that Apple has had problems doing that, and it looks like we will not be seeing an Apple-developed 5G chip next year, or at least in the immediate future.
So it was a tweet from Ming-Chi Kuo. Tweeted it a couple days ago.
Who does know what he's talking about?
Generally, sometimes he's taking shots in the dark, but he generally knows what he's talking about. So he said that development of the 5G of Apple's 5G modem, which was expected to arrive next year,
Right.
and all but supplant Qualcomm's
Oh,
5G modem to
yeah.
the tune of like something like 80 to 20%, where most of the iPhones next year, the iPhone 15, would have Apple's own modem, Apple's own 5G modem that they've been working on for a little while now.
Yeah.
He said that this is a quote, it's failed. Like the development of that has failed. Now, I don't know if that means permanently failed. He didn't necessarily say that, but he said that next year's iPhone, the iPhone 15, will have 100% Qualcomm 5G modems, Qualcomm designed 5G modems. Now, I don't know what that means as far as like, so for one, there's a lot of licensing things. We don't know what Apple's deal with Qualcomm is. So it could be that.
Yeah.
It could be as simple as that, where it like Qualcomm and Apple signed a deal that has to go through 2024. I don't know. But I'll say this. Qualcomm is the only game in town for like, I mean, I don't know if they're literally the only game in town. They might be though. But if you want a 5G modem, that's it.
Yeah.
In a smartphone, that's it. There's got to be a reason for that, in the sense that it's extremely hard to get them, the size that you need them to be, the power efficiency that you need them to be, and the integration that you need them to be with the system as a whole. So, my guess is it's extremely difficult for Apple to because they have certain power needs when it comes to the iPhone. Like you can't all of a sudden have, oh well, by the way, we have a new modem, but you're getting 2 hours less battery. Like that's not going to cut it.
Right.
So that's my guess, is that it's probably taking a little bit longer than they would have liked to meet their relatively high expectations for battery life. There's really no other phone that gets the battery life scrutiny that the iPhone get. And Apple brings some of it on itself. But like the Galaxies and all these other Android, the Pixels, like they fluctuate battery life, and Apple has to hit a certain standard, or else people are going to be like, well, what the hell? Like this is like the number one thing I care. This is why I buy an iPhone, because I get 25 hours of battery life or whatever it is. So, it would behoove them to stick with Qualcomm as long as they need to until they get those battery efficiency estimates up to where they need to be.
That makes a lot of sense because, I mean, obviously Apple has the engineering chops, I think, probably to design, obviously they're doing their own Apple Silicon now. I think they could probably design it. But I wonder, because Apple is so big now on power per watt, it does go back to that energy efficiency, battery life, whatever, that maybe they just haven't met that threshold yet.
Yeah, I mean, that's my guess. Could they, like, is there a prototype of a 5G modem? I'm quite certain there is. Mm-hmm. Is it what Apple wants? I would guess not. I mean, let's not, because it's not just the iPhone. It's the iPhone, the iPad, the Apple Watch, and the Apple Watch isn't 5G. I'm not sure what they would do there. But the big question is, so if, let's say 2024 rolls around and they do figure it out and they do put it in that iPhone, does it finally come to the Mac? Are we ever going to get a Mac that has a 5G modem? I thought this was the Apple design modem. I assumed, and I still assume, despite these rumors, that this is what Apple's waiting for, mm-hmm. is their own chip. I mean, A, for costs, and B, for efficiency. That, we're not going to waste our time with. I mean, they're not the only one. There aren't many 5G laptops out there. They're a rare breed. Mm-hmm. But I would assume Apple is waiting for their own modem to offer a 5G MacBook.
Well, the nice thing, the way, at least on the Apple side, it's fairly easy to tether your 5G phone,
sure,
as a hotspot.
But that's no fun.
It's not ideal. I know it obviously.
It is easy, and Apple has made great strides over the last, 4, 5, 7 years. Whenever it started, it was clunky. At the first implementation was very clunky. Both the carriers and Apple have gotten better. And yeah, it's pretty easy now. Once you set it up the first time, it automatically remembers it. You can just pop it. It's very good.
Yeah.
It's not as cool as just opening your laptop wherever you are and just boom.
And going. Yeah.
Yeah.
Someday.
You could do it with the iPad too. Apple still sells a 5G iPad. So,
Yeah.
It's one more step. Like tethering is fine, but it's not
I
the
know.
same.
It's
It's not the
not.
same. The speeds are a little bit lower. You're eating your iPhone data plan, all that stuff.
Yeah.
So, and with 5G unlimited plans becoming like the norm, it, it's surprising to me that there isn't a 5G, even if it's just the Pro models or maybe the non-Pro models, whatever one Apple would think would be a better seller. I'm surprised that's not an option.
Yeah.
And now it looks like it won't be one until 2024, maybe
20,
longer,
20.
maybe
Yeah.
25, maybe never. Maybe we'll never get it.
Yeah.
Maybe Apple says, you know what, we just don't see that. We don't see the market. It's possible.
We'll find out. I'm sure we will learn more about this down the road because there's been so much discussion about Apple doing this that it happened. I think we'll get information somehow as to what happened. We can continue to meander, but we should probably meander away and let people get back to their daily lives.
Their holiday plans.
Anything else? What's that?
Their holiday plans. Everyone's
in the U.S. That's right.
Yeah.
Yeah, July 4th weekend is coming up here, so it'll be lots of fireworks, I'm sure, and which will, always fun. I don't have any other rumors to offer up for now, and since I'm out next week, I guess I'll see you in a couple of weeks.
All right. Have a good
Fair enough.
Have a good holiday or vacation or whatever you're doing.
I will. And for those of you watching, thanks for watching us. If you like if you like what you see here, please leave us a comment or a question. We'll try to get back to you with an answer. If you're watching us on LinkedIn, you might want to head over to the YouTube channel and like us and subscribe so you can get notified when there are future episodes. In the meantime, have a great weekend.